Dan Medlin. He has been a frequent speaker at Launchpad Job Club. We like him a lot. He is currently the Director of Talent Acquisition at Origin. He's going to be talking about, his topic is called, Can I Boast? More than just an elevator pitch. He is a senior talent acquisition leader with over 30 years experience building return on investment in people. He has led and built recruitment programs in companies ranging from 75 to 300,000 employees, managing global teams from 3 to 30 at prominent recruitment agencies like Robert Half International and corporations like GE, Samsung, and AMD. He founded and leads Star HR, an executive recruiting and talent acquisition consulting firm based in Austin, Texas. Star HR specializes in bringing in great talent for high-tech companies locally and globally. He is also a lead consultant with Proactive Talent, a firm that provides expertise in employer branding, recruitment optimization, and on-demand recruiting. He first published the Star Career Workbook in 2010 and updated the most recent volume in 2019. Leveraging his experience in career counseling at Texas State University and outplacement at Lee Hecht Harrison, the Star Career Workbook is a cost-effective alternative to expensive outplacement and job search assistance programs. The Star Career Workbook is available on Amazon. I will be buying, as always, when he speaks to us, I will be buying $100 worth of the Star Workbooks in print. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource that takes you by the hand and leads you through this process with all kinds of exercises and things you can do to organize your job search in a meaningful way. And I will be doing that again and sending them to Shannon so she can give them out as door prizes at the live meetings the first week of every month. All right, without any more delay, let's give a good welcome to Dan Medlin.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. Thank you again to Shannon for reaching back out, reconnecting with me, and Kathy. So great to see you. Wish I could see every one of your faces. Most of the times that I've spoken at Launchpad, it's been in person, and it's fun to be able to kind of walk around and meet everybody. But here we are in the new age of Zooming most of our meetings, and glad to be here. Again, just a brief overview on me, firm believer, a parent, a husband, former athlete, have a master's in counseling and career guidance from Texas State University, and 30 years of professional experience in counseling and recruiting. I love what I do. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. I think it's important for each one of you to find that passion and keep doing it. If you love what you do, it doesn't feel like you're working a day in your life. Kathy mentioned the Star Career Workbook. Certainly encourage you to check that out. There, if you go to Amazon, you can click through and get kind of a preview of the book and see some of the different worksheets and tools. In this presentation, you're actually going to see a big chunk of the Star Career Workbook, so you'll get an idea of how that works and what it looks like. So our agenda for this morning, I'm going to cover really 4 major components of your marketing plan or your marketing package. What I call your moving forward statement is also known as your exit statement, your professional introduction, or also known as your elevator pitch, your professional objective or your career objective, and then last and probably most importantly, most effectively, your star stories. Your star stories, which will be used during interviews as well as in your resume. So let me move forward with this to the moving forward statement. The moving forward statement is essentially the answer to this question that you will get in just about every interview. Why did you leave your last job? It may sound like, why did you leave your last job? Why are you looking to make a move? what's got you looking right now, a variety of different ways, but it will be asked, and you've got to be prepared with a question, with the answer. So you'll provide some brief information about your previous position and employer. You're going to keep that very positive, no bad mouthing of any past employers, and you will include what I call your moving forward language. So what does that look like? First and foremost, you're going to use this during networking meetings. You'll use it during casual conversations at professional meetings, as you're discussing your plans with people in your network or here at the job club. You're going to practice this exit statement because you'll be asked over and over again, why are you looking and what are you looking for? Keep in mind that because in the world that we're in with a lot of online meetings, oftentimes you reach out to a networking contact and they'll say, well, let's just hop on a quick video conference. Let me get to know you and understand why you're looking and what you're looking for. So I want to just take a pause here to remind you, you've got to treat that like an interview. If you jump on a one-on-one meeting, treat it like a mini interview. Dress smart, prepare for the meeting, choose your setting, your background, and be prepared to go further than just your introduction. They may ask you for a copy of your resume. They may ask you for some companies that you are targeting in your search. They may ask you for some bullet points from your resume or some key experiences that you've had or accomplishments. So you want to be ready for that entire conversation for those introductory meetings. You get one first impression. So just remember when you jump on some of those online meetings. So your exit statement is going to include some key information about what your background and experience looks like, as well as why you're moving forward. And you're going to keep that information about why you're moving forward fairly simple and positive. For example, due to the economic conditions, my former employer was forced to let a number of us go. So I'm moving forward in my career and I'm looking for a senior software engineer role where I can continue to deliver outstanding products in record time. It's pretty brief, pretty quick, power packed as a statement. So let's take a minute real quickly, and why don't you jot down some of these core components to what an exit statement looks like. We're not going to spend a lot of time here. I'm not going to have you write all of this out in detail. These slides all of this presentation will be shared with you in the newsletter next week. So you'll have all of these different worksheets from Shannon in next week's newsletter. But go ahead and jot some of these things down. Fill in the blank, if you will, on this template exit statement. You'll see that you're going to list a few of your past titles, what your visionary role may look like, what that title might be, what industry that will be in. And then you're going to tick off a couple of your top strengths. Just remember, like with that software engineer example, delivering excellent products in record time. You can see a couple of the key kinds of strengths that are identified in that kind of a statement. When you're listing the reason for your move, keep it simple, keep it positive. It's a neutral thing. No bad mouthing of your past employer, as bad as it might have been. as difficult as your manager may have been, this isn't the time to really go into those details. Keep it positive. All right. Next key component that we're going to talk about is your elevator pitch. So you want to be ready for the ride. Your professional introduction is a really critical tool. Often it's referred to as the elevator pitch, your positioning statement, or your professional introduction. So you imagine yourself stepping onto an elevator alone with the CEO of one of the top companies that's on your list of target companies to join. The CEO turns to you and says, "So tell me about yourself." You've got a moment there. What will you say? Are you ready for that conversation? Your elevator pitch is also used in your resume. It'll be incorporated at the top of your resume into your professional summary. You'll use it during networking meetings to discuss with different people that you're meeting with about what your objective looks like, where you're going, to also give folks in your network ideas of where they can provide leads to you for decent job opportunities. And then it's definitely something that you'll be ready for and rehearsed for your interviews. So oftentimes, interviews open up with one of those big general questions like, tell me about yourself. And the last thing that you want to do is go on for about an hour and a half, giving your story from birth until today. You want to be concise, you want to be on target, and you want to be focused on, the job that you're looking for and what your key experience is for the role that you'll be interviewing for. So be ready with your elevator pitch. Here's a couple of different examples. So tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a senior marketing manager. I have expertise in online businesses, B2B, B2C. I've worked in industries including travel, e-commerce, and higher education. My passion is creating information and technology that enlightens people's lives. I've been successful at pulling together human, financial, and physical resources to achieve critical business goals. Honestly, that's probably a little high level of a statement. You might want to be more specific. But you can see there from that top paragraph some of the key qualifications that someone may have, and then how they're introducing some of those things. It really begs a lot of questions, doesn't it? So tell me about the financial resources that you've had to manage to achieve your business goals. What did that look like in your job? So the interviewer can then start unpacking your elevator pitch and ask you additional questions. So I've got another worksheet for you here if you want to jot down some of the key components. You'll notice that the key components of your elevator pitch sorry, my screen blanked out for a second. I hope it didn't on your side.
It didn't.
Okay, good. Some of the key components of the elevator pitch are similar to some of the key components of the exit statement. So you're kind of recycling some of that some of that content as you build these different scripts. When we get to the stories section, you're going to have a little bit more idea of what some of those success bullets might sound like and how you architect those. So be patient. We're going to get there here in a second or a few minutes. How about that? So let's talk about your professional objective or your career objective. So your professional objective, I refer to it as more of an internal tool. It's something that you use to identify your goals and communicate those goals with your network. I don't necessarily recommend that you put your career objective or your professional objective at the top of your resume, but instead at the top of your resume, you would use your professional introduction. Because if you think in reverse order of what a hiring manager or a recruiter is looking for when they pop open your resume, they want to know, who are you? What have you done? What is your experience? How can I leverage that experience? And that's really what the professional objective, professional introduction or elevator pitch, that's really what that conveys. Your professional objective or your career objective is more about where you want to go and what you're looking for. The answer to that question is you're looking for the job that they have open right now, and you are ready to interview for that role. So your career objective might be used during networking calls to help your contact understand how they can direct you, provide leads to you. It may also be used during a recruiter phone screen. In other words, the recruiter asks, what are some of your career objectives? Where are you heading in your career? And so you may use portions of your career objective to answer that question. But keep in mind that if that recruiter is screening you for a role at their company, your career objective ought to sound a whole lot like the job description for the job that you're about to interview for. I'm sure that makes sense. So here are a couple of different examples. Senior marketing management position. It's kind of a flip of the previous professional objective, where the senior marketing management person was introducing themselves. This is where that same person would say what they're looking for.
Dan, while you're giving people a chance to look at those, can I ask you really quickly, is this for a generic resume that you're posting initially, or do you still use that same wording when you're going after a targeted posting?
That's a good question, because I'm sure you guys have talked about many times about customizing your resume for key jobs that you're applying to, right? And so to your point, if you identify a target company where you want to go work, they post a role that you're going after, you might customize your professional introduction to highlight the key success stories or the key skills that you have that match the job description for that role. And you might also go through your resume to make sure that the success stories that are highlighted in each of your different job descriptions align with the job description that that company has then posted.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yes, this is more of a generic template, which needs to be adjusted, tweaked, and modified as you move through your career and job search. So here's the quick outline or map that you might use for your professional objective or career objective. Okay, I'd like to talk to you a bit about the methodology for identifying your key accomplishments, at least the methodology that I teach, using the STAR method. You've probably seen the STAR method before, possibly, if you've attended some job search workshops. The STAR method is often taught, or sometimes the SAR or SAR method. The T isn't always present in some of the different trainings, but it's a critical component in the way I teach the STAR methodology, because the T stands for trials. Trials, challenges, barriers that you've had to overcome. These are critical stories that you need to tell. Business leaders got where they are by using their resources to overcome trials. They want to know how you've overcome adversity also. So this is the STAR methodology that I teach. S stands for situation, the job that you were in, what your responsibility was, Be specific, name of the company, size of your team, what your title was. Then you outline the trial. What was the barrier or the difficulty that you were faced with? Then the actions that you took to overcome that barrier and the results that you achieved. So each time a behavioral interview question may be asked of you, tell me about a time when you've dealt with a difficult customer. Then you're going to go back to the STAR methodology. You're going to say, well, when I was working at AMD, I had a hiring manager that I was supporting who was highly detail oriented. I was trying to move very quickly to address the needs of the hiring manager that I was supporting, but I often had to really take my time and move through each of the different action items that were required to address the detail orientation of this particular manager. And at the end of the day, I was able to fill 5 critical positions for this hiring manager, including a senior director located internationally, which brought in millions of dollars of business for the company. See how that works? I went through the situation, the trial, the actions, and the results. An interviewer might then probe a little bit, tell me a little more about that senior director role that you filled. How did you find that person? Where were they, etc.? I'm prepared to tell that story. That story is probably also embedded somewhere in my resume, hoping that someone will ask me about that, right? So STAR stories are used when they most directly connect to the business needs, the industry, the job that you're interviewing for, etc. So in an interview, like I said, you'll use that STAR story, which is most relevant and most closely answers the question of the interviewer. You'll also boil down, I like to say, that those STAR stories into bullet points that you'll have in your resume. I typically recommend around 2 to 3 STAR story bullet points under each job heading in your resume. Because you probably know that a lot of interviewers are sitting there with your resume open and they're going down through your resume and asking you different questions about your experience and background. So you want them to ask you about a critical success story that you can then unpack and talk about in that interview. So your STAR stories become the interview guide for the interviewer. Here's a quick worksheet. You can jot down these key components. Again, the job that you were in, the situation, the trial. Make sure that you really paint the picture of pain that you might have gone through in, with that barrier. Did it set you back a few days? Did you have to crack the books and learn a new coding language to solve that problem? Did you have to call in some additional resources? Always a good example to give, where you recruit some additional help to help solve a problem, bring in some additional people to help you solve that problem. It shows that you're a team player, and that you are very collaborative when that's the way that you've solved problems, is by working with others. Most companies really don't want a lone wolf. So I'm just kind of emphasizing that. All right. So this is the kind of the key overall look of what a STAR worksheet will look like. And again, I recommend around 2 STAR story bullet points under each job description in your resume. So let me just review everything that I've gone through so far with you. And we're going to head toward Q&A, which I'm hoping you've got a lot of good Q&A. So after this review, just go ahead and start putting your questions in the chat, or Kathy will moderate and we can, get some raised hands and you all can ask some questions. And when we get to questions, anything is available, really. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a question from the content that I've presented here. So I'm happy to answer any kind of crazy interview question, any kind of salary negotiation question, any kind of job search question that you may have. But want to just review with you again, these communication tools have a consistent message. You'll reuse a good deal of the content in each of these different tools, from the exit statement to the professional introduction to your professional objective. Your exit statement is the emphasis is about moving forward. What are you going to do next? The reason why you're leaving the company, the previous company, is brief, and you keep it positive. Your elevator pitch is your professional introduction. Rehearse it, and rehearse it. Please remember that each new person that hears your professional introduction is hearing it for the first time. Does that make sense, Kathy?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Each new person that hears your professional introduction is hearing it for the first time, even though you may have said it 100 times and you think, oh my God, this sounds like such a rehearsed script. It's the first time that person's hearing it. Okay, so don't worry about rehearsing it. Just make sure you deliver it. Your professional introduction is a map. It's an internal tool. It's ready when it's asked for. I don't necessarily recommend that you put it on your resume. Focus on getting a great professional introduction at the top of your resume. And lastly, your STAR accomplishment stories create the impact in your resume. They drive the direction of your interviews, and they reveal the value that you bring to the company. So I told you, Shannon, I told you I was going to move really fast through the deck, but I just wanted to make sure that there was plenty of time for Q&A. At the end of the day, God's got an amazing plan for you. Follow that plan, and remember that you have a purpose. If you're executing on your passion, then you'll enjoy what you're doing. All right, I am open to questions.
I was just going to say, we have a couple questions in the chat.
Okay.
One is from Martha. What is the best way for a candidate to prepare a moving forward statement if they have been terminated?
Okay. Yes, I get it. And so you may have a very brief explanation of what happened in the previous employment, but you're really going to keep that simple. I've exited from my previous employer, and looking forward to new positions in blah blah blah. List out your target market and the industries and so forth. I would keep it very simple and very brief. If in fact there was a termination for cause, perhaps because you did not align well to the values, or the company that you're working for just really had a different direction than that you were on, and really worked in a way that did not jive, did not align for you, then just simply say, I exited from this company to find a company that better aligns with my values and the way I work.
Okay. We have another one. If somebody is changing careers, can you give some general information for how to describe that?
Yeah. Well, that, it's a tough one. But you're always leveraging some of the experience that you've gained in the past. You're never, in my mind, you're never starting from a blank slate. After 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of doing something, you've gained skills, you've gained experiences, you've built up a passion for something that you're now pivoting to. So do the investigation about what those things are that you've learned are your strengths, and then make sure that you highlight that. In the Star Career Workbook, I do the 5 Strengths Finders assessment. And you can actually, if you don't want to get a copy of the Star Career Workbook, you can actually look for the book called Strengths Finders, or Know Your Strengths was the title it was under at one time. And then, really go through and do that assessment. And those will then be the things that you'll have as your bullet points and as your highlights. So you might say, for example, that while working as a nurse, I learned a great deal about the legal ramifications of the medical practice, medical malpractice, and I'm leveraging that skill and that experience now to be I forget what the person was saying earlier about, advising, attorneys on medical malpractice lawsuits. I'm a nurse consultant, or whatever that whatever the title that might be. So, you picked up things during your career that you're now leveraging as you pivot into this new career. Highlight those items. I hope that helps, and I hope that answers. If there's a follow-up question, please ask.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how you do it. And almost all of us have done that. You start your career and you discover that there are chunks of it that you love, and there are chunks of it that you just hate. They're tedious, they're boring,
Yeah.
they're challenging. And so if you can find a job where you get to do the stuff that you really are passionate about, and say, I learned in that job that what I'm really good at is this kind of piece. And so
Yes.
I'm now looking for an opportunity to do that full time.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so it helps to know yourself and just think back to, what did I like at that job and what did I not
Right.
like?
Yeah.
Very good advice. And then we have another one where it says, do you have advice for candidates who are having difficulty quantifying their resume bullets? That reminds me of a software QA guy who said, what am I supposed to talk about? How many bugs I found in the software? So talk to us about quantification.
Well, let me just answer that question. Yes. How many bugs did you find? Absolutely. I want to know. What do you think the hiring manager wants to know? How many bugs did you find? That's your job as a QA manager. Yes. So yes, quantify. Really, there are plenty of jobs where we talk so much about very subjective kinds of goals, and a lot of times it's either I completed the project or I didn't complete the project. But every time you do complete a project, there's time. How long did it take you? Did you complete it in a shorter amount of time than you originally budgeted? talking about budget, was there a financial budget for that project or for that activity? Did you complete the project under the budget? So there are a number of ways: dollars, time, number of items that you accomplished. But then there's also the number of people that you've worked with, and you can quantify those things. Another great thing I love to quantify is how many people you've helped, how many people you've mentored over your career, how many employees you've helped to groom who've now even surpassed where you are now in your career. Highlighting those, quantifying that kind of information has huge impact.
Let me get one of the things that I have always advised people to do, and feel free to diss this or improve on it. I can take it. But for people with this problem, I'll say on a resume, you can say played a key role in the whatever delivery of complex software within tight time span with a budget of so and so. And then
sure.
And so you can piggyback on a company success or on a team success or a department
Absolutely
success, and say you played a key role in that. Quantify the big project, and then if they ask you, so what was your role, then you explain what you did.
Absolutely, yeah. And remember the example I gave from when I was at AMD and I hired a director in Europe who then sold a $6 million contract for the company. I didn't sell the $6 million contract. I recruited the guy who sold the $6 million contract. Did I bring $6 million to the company? I absolutely had a part in that.
Don't ever lie, but state the role that you played in the group success.
Right.
We have another question, which is, do you recommend that candidates ask at the end of an interview a question like, is there anything that would hinder me from moving forward in the process?
That's perfectly fine. It's a good sales type of question. More than anything, I like to do the assumptive close. So what are the next steps for me to move forward toward an offer? Who do I need to meet with next to close this deal? I see that John Rothgeb has a question.
Not really a question, Dan. I just wanted to, hi, Dan, how you doing?
Hey, John, good to see you, man.
Glad to have you back. Just wanted to reinforce that, what do I do? Tout the bugs I found. And, you're saying that reminded me of a guy I worked with many, many years ago at Pervasive Software. And I worked a lot with QA. And, I was a trainer, so I didn't find bugs. I used software so it wouldn't break because you didn't want to have it break in front of, and I was also a sales engineer. You don't want to have it break in a demo for a customer. You don't want to have it break in front of your students as you're trying to teach them to use it. This guy, and I can see his face, I can't remember his name right now, but he just had this incredible talent for breaking stuff, for doing stuff in a way that nobody would think about, that then broke it. And, while he was an oddball and kept to himself, and he'd be great for work from home right now, nice guy though, he wasn't one of those people who would necessarily fit with the team, but touting his ability to break stuff and figure that out. And then there were some instances where I worked with him where he had to replicate bugs that a customer had found, and it saved the customer. Those are the kinds of things that you should be prepared for with your star stories, and be prepared to tout and, tell a hiring manager, this is what I bring to the table.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And one last point is, quickly, if that talent, if you can figure out what that hiring manager's big itch, what is the problem that has got him to open the rec and do the hiring? If you can align your skill or talent with what he wants fixed, that's going to help you in the process even more.
Yeah.